Splitgate came out of the game hot for what was essentially at one point a grad level project that turned into a full game and game studio. 1047 Games released the game to at the time what I would describe as a lukewarm reception amongst the greater public on May 24th, 2019, after delaying it a few days due to issues that popped up right before launch. Since then, the game's reviews on Steam have gone from mixed to mostly positive all time, with the recent reviews being very positive on Steam. I personally don't rate Steam reviews all that highly, but sometimes they can show overall trends and opinions of a player base. And in this case, it almost is the opposite. Despite the review score of the game increasing, the player base has basically fallen off a cliff. Sure, most games tend to lose players after the newness wears off, but Splitgate has gone from its peak of over 11,000 players to now having a peak of 287 players in the last 24 hours. At the time of writing that script, that's what the number was. It could be off a few players, either plus or minus, since I'm actually recording it a couple days after, but really it's a moot point. So looking at the Steam charts for the game, it is basically flatlined at this point. For reference, this player count puts it well outside the top 100 games on Steam, where many smaller studios are able to keep their shooters even for games that have been out longer. Some examples of this would be Scum, Insurgency Sandstorm, Ring of Elysium, and many others. And I don't know if I pronounced Ring of Elysium right, but whatever. That's just what we're going with. So in June alone, the game has lost 87% of its player base. These numbers are honestly depressing to look at, for a game that while may not have been my absolute favorite, I'd hoped to see carve out a sustainable niche. In this video, we'll look at some of the reasons why I think the game has hemorrhaged so many players, and also look at, despite the player base looking bleak, how the game is today. I just want to note that this video will probably come across pretty negative, and I do not want people to think that I hate the game or want to see it die. It's just hard to convey what is going on in a positive light. So what do I think happened? Well, let's start with the release of the game. Originally scheduled to release on May 22nd, the game was pushed back a few days to that of May 24th, which was a Friday. Overall, this isn't really a huge deal, but the way they handled it was definitely not the best and left a sour taste in some excited players' mouths. They basically released a statement about 10 minutes before the game was supposed to go live, saying that it would be delayed. Now I'm all for delaying your game if it's not ready, but I think you should know whether or not it's not going to be ready prior to 10 minutes before launch, and that was kind of the sentiment you saw around the community at the time. Next, let's look at the marketing for the game, or honestly, lack thereof. Being a self-published game by 1047 Games, it lacked a true marketing campaign, and relied more on word of mouth and streamers. This honestly went a little better than I would have expected, with some streamers getting okay numbers in the first few days. But I feel that tons of people have still never even heard of the game, which is evidenced by the recent Linus Tech Tips video, where he suggested the game as a fill for your Halo fix until Halo the Master Chief Collection finally comes to PC. There are two blunders I think this highlights. One, tons of people were commenting on the subreddit and video basically saying, "Oh cool, I never heard of this game." And two, the fact that the community, including myself during my review, refers to this game as basically Halo plus Portals. Except PC Gamer, which referred to it as a Portal/Unreal Tournament mashup. But let's be real, PC Gamer still can't tell that Halo 5 isn't Halo Reach, so I can't say they know too much about what's going on. So why is referring to this game as Halo plus Portals a bad thing, you might ask? Well, I've seen it cause so many players to come in and play for a bit, and basically say something along the lines of, "This isn't Halo," and then leave waiting for Halo to come out, and I totally agree with them that it's not really Halo. This is just a downside of the game being a smaller game, where you need to have relatable ways to describe the game so people can imagine what it is without needing to read a huge article or watch a long video. In our lazy society, and I'll 100% include myself in this landscape, we want to be able to instantly picture what something is without having to do a lot of research. So when you say it's Halo plus Portal, that instantly gives you an idea of what the game is because you know what Halo is, and you also know what Portal is. So in your mind, it's pretty easy to just combine the two. The problem is the game doesn't really feel like Halo. So all these players came in looking for Halo, and what they got was a heavily Halo-inspired shooter that plays nothing like Halo if we're honest. The time to kill is similar, and that is higher than your average military shooter, and a ton of the guns and game modes are ripped straight out of Halo, but that's really where the similarities stop. The game honestly does not play anything like Halo because of the portals, and while that is not necessarily a bad thing, and I'd argue it's honestly a good thing because you wouldn't want just a shitty free-to-play Halo ripoff, it's turned off tons of players who literally just wanted to fulfill their Halo fix. You can read tons of comments along the lines of, "Oh, this isn't Halo," etc., etc., if you go and read old Reddit threads from when the game came out, or even as people still try the game today. So that sort of explains some of the player retention issues, right? The misconception of what the game truly is caused tons of players who thought they would enjoy the game to fall off fairly quickly. But that would not lead to the huge drop in players this game has seen, and I would agree. Let's now look at what the devs have done throughout the release of the game. So I quickly mentioned the release debacle that left a sour taste in some of the players' mouths, but most people were pretty understanding and showed up for the release of the game 2 days later, where they were unfortunately met with an unoptimized game with pretty lackluster sound cues that just led to an extremely frustrating gameplay experience, as people would just hop up behind you and kill you without making a sound. I spoke about this in my initial review of the game, so if you're curious as to what I thought about on release, you can go ahead and check that out. It took the devs until May 28th to try and fix some of the sound and optimization issues with patch 1.03. But the fixes were not perfect, with optimization issues still being a definite issue. Honestly though, they were a step in the right direction, and things seemed decent at the time. The patch came out quickly and brought back some players that had already fallen off, and I thought if they could get their next patch right, and soon, with more optimization fixes, along with adding some content, we could really have a good thing going. However, the next patch, 1.04, that came out on June 6th made a huge misstep. In an attempt to deal with some of the complaints of players getting emails they didn't want to play in the team's social playlist, 1047 Games decided to completely remove the playlist altogether, leaving only the options to play competitive games, which is like your ranked mode, and then custom games, which, you know what those are. This decision was widely disliked by the player base, and tons of people left the game just because of it, or just never returned like you would normally after a bigger patch in a game. As you can see, after June 4th, the game has never had a meaningful uptick in players again. 1047 Games did end up bringing back Team Social on June 9th, but the damage had already been done. Patch 1.04 also forced new players to watch the tutorial and play a bot game before entering online play, in an attempt to ease new players in, as 1047 Games felt part of the reason for the fall off was players not really understanding the game's mechanics. And while that is sort of true, I think that is an issue. Forcing people to play bot games before they can play real games is just a bad misstep. It may be just me, but bot games are almost the most useless way to teach someone how to play a game, because bots don't act like players at all and in most cases are extremely bad. And in this game you just pretty much stomped them. It did give you the option to kind of learn the mechanics a little bit, but it's nothing like playing against real players where you have to think on your feet and kind of predict things. The bots just were bad. So you didn't really learn any of the mechanics, and you were basically just as bad when you were finally thrown into real games. Alright, so I'm editing this section in post because I realized when I was rewatching the video before posting it on YouTube, I completely forgot to mention a little bit about the bots. So along with the bot games that you have to play now before you can get into real matches, Splitgate also now throws bots into your social matches. And you'll kind of notice that in the gameplay if you can tell. But basically even though you'll think there'll be 8 players in your social game, there's actually 2 to 4 bots on average. And they have names that make it not very obvious that they're bots. In that gameplay section, I think 4 of those were bots. 2 on each team maybe, I can't remember for sure. Their names are not obvious that they're bots. It's not bot blah 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 like it is in Counter-Strike and something. It'll just be a regular name someone would name themselves. And so it really ruins the social experience. Sure, it makes matchmaking quicker, but now half the players on average are bots. It makes games really uneven and the bots are terrible. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in because I felt it was kind of important. So anyways, back to the video. After this update, there's not been a whole ton added to the game. There's been lots of game mode adjustments and some bug fixes, and they recently added in a voting system to matchmaking, and added in a waiting area to rank similar to Overwatch's skirmish mode, but nothing that would constitute as new content besides some skins, and that's really an issue. Almost all the patches for this game have just been adjusting playlists without adding anything cool or new, adjusting game mode settings, and fixing bugs, which while definitely is good to see, needs to be accompanied by some new stuff if you want to intrigue players to stick around or return if they'd fallen off. And none of this really speaks to some of the inherent problems I think the game has. This game has one of the higher skill ceilings for shooters that I have played recently, with all the crazy portal plays you can pull off. And new players that come into the game just find themselves getting destroyed by the seasoned players who have been playing since the game came out, or even possibly since the open beta. Even in my case, as a more casual player that has played since the game came out, I find myself struggling to keep up now due to how small the player base is and matchmaking that has become more and more unbalanced, as it just tries to find you matches without making you wait forever. Overall, Splitgate is still a ton of fun to play, but I sadly just don't see its numbers bouncing back at this point. The initial hype is worn off, and unless 1047 adds in some super compelling content, I can't see many players that have left returning. I do hope the game can stabilize and carve out a tiny niche for itself, but if I'm honest, I just don't see that happening. The subreddit is already in bleak form, where most posts have people complaining the game is dead and how they can't find matches, which is never a good sign for players who are thinking about checking the game out because they come in and see everyone on the Reddit already complaining that they can't find matches and the game is dead, and no one wants to check out a dead game even if it's free. You just will go play something else that has a player base. So yeah, that's what I think went wrong with Splitgate. If you disagree, just go ahead and toss your opinion in the comments or shoot me a message. And if you enjoyed the video, throw a like, comment, and sub to the channel. I also stream semi-regularly, so follow me on Twitch, which you can find my link in the description below. I also created a Discord, so come and hang out, and I'll see you guys next time. And for anything good. Does my head peek over this these days?
I think so.
Well, I guess we'll just find out when I die.
Just don't move. If you don't move, probably won't notice. This is silver.
Oh shit. Oh no! Oh no! I'm scared.
Just keep him busy. Keep him busy. He's diffusing.
No, that's alright, we did it. We did it. What a way to win.